You're now going to start looking at decision analysis with forecasting. Okay, so before you make a decision for your company, you might want to hire a forecaster, and hopefully they can help you make your decision. Okay, so hopefully this forecaster can give you an idea of what's to come, and that will help you make your decision. Should you build the plant? Should you not? Should you release a new product, or should you create it and release it or not? Okay. And let's say the forecaster gives you a positive outcome. For example, the product that you're thinking about creating and bringing to market. Let's say he says or she says that, yeah, it's going to do awesome. Or let's say you're thinking about building a new plant and the forecaster says, yeah, there's going to be increased demand for your product. I think you should. So then the question is, what are the odds of the forecaster being correct? How often is that forecaster correct? What are the odds of the forecaster being incorrect? So we're going to factor those odds also into our decision making. So A, we're going to take into account what the forecaster says. B, we're also going to take into account the percentage of time that he is correct, or she is, and incorrect. Okay, now to do this, we're actually going to need Bayes' rule. Okay, if you remember Bayes' rule here it is. Okay, we're going to do it in Excel, so we're not really going to go through this formula per se. We're going to do this formula. We're going to recreate it, but in Excel with some tables, which I really like. It kind of makes you not even have to think about this formula. Okay, and what we're going to need, the forecaster, we're going to look at all the forecaster's previous predictions. We're going to figure out how often did he forecast a positive outcome, how often out of those times that he forecasted a positive outcome, how often was he correct? Okay, and how often did he forecast a negative outcome? And how often was he correct with that? And we're going to, again, need Bayes' rule to get these probabilities. So Bayes' rule, again, what we're going to do to get those probabilities, what we actually need to get those probabilities, we're going to look at how similar products or similar decisions performed in the past. Are we thinking about building a new hotel? Well, how did that previous hotel do? If we are a large chain or a large company with lots of hotels, I'm sure there's another hotel you could look at that's similar to the one you're about to build, and you could ask yourself, well, how did it perform? Granted, it would need to be in a similar economy, etc., etc. But there's always the possibility of looking at similar products or similar decisions in the past. So what was the outcome when a similar plant was built, if we're thinking about building a new plant? What was the outcome if a new product was released? How did it perform in the market previously? So for large companies, usually they can just take previous decisions from the past or previous data from within the company. Now, if you're a small startup, this can be harder to find these probabilities because you might just be really starting out. We've definitely seen that at BCIT where the students are trying to do a project for a small startup, for example, a microbrewery, and this microbrewery has no previous data almost. Maybe they have data just from the last 6 months, which isn't even a full season, or sorry, isn't even a full year. And so what they need to do to forecast anything going forward, they need to get results from a similar startup, which can be hard. We've tried that with student projects before to try to get previous results from another company, and at first they said yes, they'd share it, and then common sense got the better of them and they didn't want to share it anymore. So this can be hard if it's a small startup like a microbrewery or a craft coffee shop or something like that, or any small startup. Okay. And again, we're going to use Bayes' rule. What we're going to have, starting with, we're going to have the probability of success and failure for whatever it is that we're doing based on previous outcomes. And then we're going to have, based off of previous forecasts, perhaps that the forecaster made or that we had other forecasters make within our company, we're going to have the prediction based off of whether the product was successful or not, for example, or what did the forecaster predict when the product was a failure. And again, these are all based off previous forecasts. Now what we really want, we want the opposite of that. Our forecaster is going to now give us a forecast or a prediction. What we want from that, we want the odds of success based on that forecast, or we want want the odds of failure based on that forecast. And again, to get these odds, we're going to use Bayes' rule, because what we want to do, or what we need to do, is flip the ordering of these two events, if you will. So we want failure and success at the front of this line instead of behind it. We want forecast, what the forecast is, as the condition, instead of how the product did or the decision did as the decision, if that makes sense.